Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smart Talk. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're all doing well in this day. Today, we are joined by Kelly Wylam, Director of Innovation Partnership at Ben Franklin Technology Partners, which is a statewide network that fosters innovation to stimulate Pennsylvania's economic growth and prosperity. As Director at Innovation Partnership, or IPart for short, Kelly directs and manages all of their assistance and grant funding programs, working with clients to review their technology concepts for federal submission and identifying and submitting grant proposals. And it's in that similar capacity that Kelly joins us today. She'll be educating us on the SBIR and STTR federal funding programs and sharing her insights how you can write a winning proposal to make sure you get your share. So really appreciate her taking out the time to share her expertise on the subject. It's a crucial topic for startups in need of extra assistance in this trying time. So with that, I give you Kelly Wylam.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm going to start out here by talking about, just a moment, my screen's not working right. For some reason, I can't see my, there we go. Okay, can you all see the first slide?
Yep, looking good.
Okay, great. So we're going to do a review here of the SBIR and STTR programs. It's going to be relatively high level, but I want to get all the information in the sort of the basics and a good starting point. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat, and folks that are helping to facilitate will apprise me of that as I'm going through. It's probably easier to address the questions as we're on the different slides. So I'm going to do a brief overview, why you would be interested in SBIR and STTR funding, the differences between the two programs, the participating agencies in the two programs, eligibility, things to note briefly, and advice, and then a quick overview of our innovation partnership assistance programs. So the purpose of the SBIR and STTR programs are really to stimulate technology innovation in the private sector and strengthen the role of small business concerns, SBCs. What you'll notice throughout this as well, I'm going to use a lot of acronyms, which you may or may not be familiar with. It's the alphabet soup of governmental funding programs, either at the state and federal level. So we use a lot of acronyms, unfortunately. I'll try to remember to articulate them out fully so you know what I'm talking about. It's also to increase commercialization from research results or research institutions of higher education or private research institutions, encourages participation of socially and economically disadvantaged women-owned businesses, veteran-owned businesses, rural businesses, or those in underserved and underrepresented communities. I should note that it is not an alternative source of funding for basic research. So I received a question early in advance of our discussion today about the creation of shell companies in order to work with research institutions to access SBIR and STTR funding. And I just want to address that for the group because we really don't recommend that, nor is the program really philosophically about doing something like that. These programs are really for companies or entrepreneurial endeavors that are being set up as codified companies to access these funds to help grow the technology or innovation and get it closer to commercialization. So the setting up of a shell company to access these funds wouldn't be necessarily an appropriate venture to undertake. There are over $3 billion available for SBIR funds and $50 billion in other R&D funding programs at the federal level. The reason we equate those two is because the SBIR and STTR programs may be a gateway to being able to access that over 50 billion in other federal R&D programs, because if you're successful at SBIR and STTR, the agencies really like to see that, and it gives you a leg up in potential other contract opportunities or other federal R&D programs that may exist for funding. It is not alone, it is a grant in both instances, It provides recognition by other entities such as Ben Franklin or the Science Center or our other partner organizations like the Life Sciences Greenhouses that provide other types of investment capital for growing innovative businesses. So if you are successful in receiving SBIR and STTR funds, it proves something to folks looking to potentially invest in you. One, that you can read and follow instructions. Two, that you have been successful at navigating the gauntlet that is the federal SBIR and STTR program, and that you are coachable. So it is a good indicator for other investment types of entities that you would be a potential good investment as a company. Again, there's the opportunity to work with larger corporations and academia. If you're a very small business with the Innovation Partnership, a majority of our businesses we work with are considered extremely small, 5 employees or less, more typically 3 employees, and some start out as 1 employee because they're entrepreneurial endeavors. The IP rights are retained by the small business. It provides money for high risk projects and not for basic research. There's the creation of jobs and generating of tax revenues. So now I'm going to move on to information on each program and what distinguishes SBIR and STTR. Sort of a misnomer to refer to both of these programs as cohesive individual uh, uh, programs as the SBIR and STTR program, in that there are 11 different agencies that offer these grant funding opportunities, and each agency sort of has its own flavor of how they operate their SBIR and STTR program. So while the program enabling legislation is through um, the SBA does not oversee and manage the individual SBIR and STTR programs at each of the 11 different federal agencies. So as I noted, there are 11 different federal agencies, and they offer early stage R&D funding for small technology companies, individual entrepreneurs who form a company, which we suggest you do prior to submission, while the rules and regulations indicate that you could establish your company, at the time of registration. There are a number of, or submission, excuse me, there are a number of registration requirements depending upon the agency that you must execute. In order to do that, you have to be a codified company because you need an FEIN number, which is the Federal Employee Identification Number. And you really can't do that unless you've set up your company as a formal company. So these 11 federal agencies have extramural R&D budgets of over $100 million, and they're required to set aside 3.2% for SBIR programs. The STTR program is a smaller program. It's 10% the size of the SBIR program. It's similar to SBIR, but the funds are used for cooperative research projects involving the small business concern and a research institution, which could be a college or university, a federally funded research laboratory, or a nonprofit research institution. The STTR was created to transfer technologies out from those institutions and spin them out into companies that would benefit both the public and private sector and consumers. 5 agencies are required by STTR to reserve a portion of their extramural R&D budgets for funds for STTR awards. So here we have a listing of all of the 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR program. The ones in red and with the asterisk are the agencies which are significantly larger and have more funding out of the general budget, and therefore they are mandated to offer both SBIR and STTR programs. As you can see from the list there, Department of Defense is obviously an extremely large agency. Health and Human Services, or NIH, very large agency, National Science Foundation. So it makes sense when you think about the amount of funding and general line item, but that funding goes to in the general budget. Here's some useful statistics. I always think it's important to sort of show benchmarking and statistics about the programs themselves. what the amount of funding is that is available through each of the different agencies. So you'll see in the green there, the agency and the amount of funding, SBIR and STTR, and it's the number of awards and then the number of small business concerns that receive the awards. The agencies that have SBIR only are in yellow, and the awards to the small business concerns also are in yellow. You'll find that while this is fiscal year 2018, these numbers do not vacillate much between one year and the next. There has been an overall increase in allocation to the SBIR budget over the past 3 years. There's been a little bit of an increase. It was at around 2.5 billion overall, and now it is slightly over $3 billion. The program structure. So how are these programs structured? They're structured in 3 phases. Phase 1 is a startup phase. It's proof of concept. The awards are typically, and I say typically again because not every single agency has their maximum and minimum at the same amount. For instance, Department of or the EPA, for instance, has around $100 million, $100,000, excuse me, $100,000 for a phase 1 award. Department of Transportation, maybe around $80,000. NSF is now at $256,000. And there are some other variations depending upon the agency. Typically, again, the project period for whatever that phase 1 award is for 6 to 12 months, and it supports the technical merit for feasibility of an idea or technology or innovation. So hopefully, you're investing your time and effort here in learning about SBIR and STTR. There's a lot of reading, a lot of digesting to do, and it's really important that you do that homework and read and follow the instructions, because what's going to happen is you're going to put a lot of time and effort, 80 to 150 hours, in preparing for and crafting your federal proposal for a phase 1 submission. In terms of the return on investment for your time allocation, the execution of the project, that, let's say, for example, that $250,000 may not feel compensatory for all the time and effort you put into leading into that phase 1. Well, then we have the phase 2. I mean, the prize at the end of working on the phase 1 is that you're aligned better to be successful at receiving a phase 2 award, where you can see the compensation is significantly greater than that $250,000. Also, you can move, be working on your project, your technology, your innovation, and move it further along to commercialization. The awards can be up to $1 million or more, and typically the time is about 2 years to work on those phase 2 projects. So only phase 1 award winners are considered for phase 2. There is some exception with NIH in that they have a fast track and or direct to phase 2 opportunity. If you have never submitted an SBIR or STTR before, we strongly encourage you to go the traditional route of submitting a phase 1 and then submitting a phase 2 after you've been successful. We have not seen any of our clients that we've assisted with either the fast track or direct to phase 2 have success and be awarded the funding. So there's also a waiting period if you submit one of those and you are unsuccessful. So we just really prefer your chances if you submit a phase 1 and then a phase 2. Phase 3, there's a period during which the phase 2 innovation moves from the laboratory to the marketplace. There really is no SBIR funding to support this phase. In context of, let's say, Department of Defense, phase 3 would be considered a contract with the Department of Defense. So that would be your phase 3. You wouldn't be receiving grant funds, though. You would be in a contract with DoD where they'd be purchasing your services or your product. So in that instance, that's what they refer to as phase 3. If you wouldn't be contracting with DoD, it would be your commercialization period, and there are no grant funds available for that particular period. Again, this is just a visualization of what we just went over there with phase one, phase two, and phase three. Program eligibility. As the applicant, I mentioned this earlier, you must be a codified small business in order to submit a proposal electronically to any of the 11 agencies. So a little bit later on here in the presentation, I have a grid that's also on our website that's available, and it expresses the registrations that are mandated to be in place prior to submitting your proposal electronically to the federal government. The qualification standards are that the company must be greater than 51% American owned and independently operated. It needs to be for profit. It can not be a nonprofit organization. The principal researcher must be primarily employed at the business concern at the time of award. Um, Again, that's per the regulations. Our coaching has indicated that you really need to be doing your homework well in advance of having that situation in place at the time of award. We would like you to negotiate and have those roles for the team members who are participating or anticipated to be participating in the project really nailed down in advance of your submission, so there are no surprises if you were to get the award and magically your PI is unavailable or claims that they didn't agree to work on the project. So we really want that stuff laid down in advance. It encourages research partnerships, as we mentioned earlier, whether it's SBIR or STTR, you can work in collaboration with a research institution. And another qualification is that it must be a small business under the rules and regulations of the SBA, which is less than 500 employees. And for our purposes, that would be a huge company that the innovation partnership would be working with. We really, in the 17-year plus history of assisting clients, we've never had a company that has anything close to 500 employees. But that's the regulation. So you can still have 499 employees and still access SBIR and STTR funding. I saw something flashing there. Is there a question? Does anybody have a question? No?
No, I don't see anything in there.
Okay, I didn't see. I just saw one of my things was flashing. I thought maybe there was a question. Okay. So again, who can qualify? Proposers must meet certain eligibility criteria to participate in STTR. It needs to be joint research, again, between that research institution and the company. But the company is always going to be the applicant, whether it's SBIR or STTR. 40% of the project work must be executed by the business and 30% at minimum by the nonprofit research institution. The remaining 30% can be either executed by a combination of either entity. The PI may be at the university or from the small business. It's not stipulated. And again, this is one of those flavor and variety things where the agency itself in the solicitation and the rules and instructions will indicate what their preferences and the rules are and where they want the PI to be located, and the amount of work, whether it's per the budget or per the amount of project execution that they should be aligned with. So the company needs to be located in the United States and meet one of the following. It needs to be a nonprofit college or university, public or private, a nonprofit surgical hospital, or a federally funded R&D center. No go-go's. A go-go is government owned and government operated, and it could be a federal lab. And if you were wondering where federal labs are located and what the federal labs do, you can check all that out at federallabs.org. It's very exciting stuff.
Kelly, real quick, we did just have a couple questions come
Sure.
through. One asking, will these slides be available to attendees after the session?
Absolutely.
All right, awesome. And yeah, we can send that out to a follow-up in the follow-up email.
Absolutely.
Afterward. Great. And then Kevin asks, are there restrictions on resubmission or new submissions for an SBIR grant if the SBC/technology has been previously submitted and not awarded?
Okay, so yes, there are some rules to that, and it really depends upon, again, the agency that you submitted to and were not awarded by. Typically, there is some kind of feedback that is given. It depends if it was NIH and it wasn't scored at all. You need to really be back in touch with the program manager or somebody under the topic area to try to get a debrief from them to find out what the issues and concerns were. Um, with NSF, there would need to be a substantial improvement. Again, I think it's hard to speak globally because each of the agencies sort of has their own nuanced approach to a resubmission. But you would really want to have that debrief information so that you would know what the issues and concerns were. And you could still use the Innovation Partnership Assistance Program if you were doing a resubmission. In fact, I have a lot of our clients, I would say maybe 60% of our clients, as the entire portfolio, um, tried to submit or submitted a proposal on their own, were unsuccessful, found out about our IPart assistance, and came to us for the preparatory assistance to help them have a better chance on their second time submitting. I hope that answers your question. So moving along, here's a look at, again, a table look at sort of the program differences between SBIR and STTR. You can see the phase durations are relatively the same. The number of agencies, we went over that. The participation in, I don't know, yeah, the participation by the small business concern in the execution of the project per the allocation of funds of the budget. SBIR is 67%. The small business must, it's a minimum, must execute, and STTR is 40%. The remaining on the STTR can be, um, can be between the two entities, as well as the involvement of a subcontractor, if that is outside of the institution that you're working with on an STTR. Okay. So to reiterate, something basic and simple that you can remember, STTR is mandatory participation by a nonprofit R&D institution. SBIR, you can work with a nonprofit research institution. It's allowed, but it's optional. So there's more flexibility. Typically, you'll know if there's more comfort in the one structure over the other. It's more about logic than it is about crafting your proposal to specifically be submitted for one or the other. It's usually dictated by the project itself and the anticipated team members or individuals that you're working with on your individual projects. So agency differences, briefly here. When we say grants versus contracts, what we're referring to is the form of agreement as an awardee that you would be signing. So some of the forms of agreement take the form of a grant agreement, and the other takes the form of a contract agreement. The difference being that, as you can see, with DoD, NASA, and NIH, or I'm sorry, Homeland Security. I thought I juxtaposed the acronym there, Homeland Security. You can anticipate that they might have a need where, if you're developing a service or a product that is deployable and can be used in theater, or that the government actually has a need for, that the agencies listed there, DoD, NASA, and Homeland Security, might have a want to contract eventually in that phase 3 period, where you're developing something that they specifically want and need. So they have that procurement, and the form of agreement is a contract. On the other hand, agencies that are looking for you to solve a problem in a creative manner, and many companies could have very different approaches to solving a particular problem with their innovation. That takes the form of a grant, because NIH and NSF would not be looking to procure at any point any of what you're developing or commercializing for the most part. And I actually haven't really seen that happen. So, um, again, I always use speculative language here strictly because of the, again, differences between the agencies and the variety. But I've really never seen NSF look to contract with any of the companies doing SBIR in my tenure of working with companies. So again, contracts, agency specific topics, they want you to really, they will define for you what their problem is. In other words, if DoD were to say, we're really looking for a solution that is a coating for the bottom of a submarine that's going to last 20 years, that's not going to need to be repainted, that is has a cloaking with nanotechnology, is undetectable, it's so many knots. That's how specific DoD is going to phrase the innovation that they're seeking. Either you're in that technology space or you're not to solve that problem. The grants, on the other hand, tend to be broad topic areas and are more investigator defined. So, if, for instance, they're looking for a diagnostic tool that's non invasive for pancreatic cancer, it all depends how you are in that space and what your innovation is. As long as you're going to solve for that problem in an innovative manner that is competitive, better, cheaper, stronger, faster, different, less expensive, they're going to consider that a potential for award. So they're not going to tell you that they want the diagnostic tool to be 10 inches long and have all these other bells and whistles in specificity the way DoD would for a solution. um, Types of SBIRs would be applying an existing technology to a new type of application or process, or develop a whole new technology or innovation. Plastics is an example. Everybody remembers The Graduate, right? Maybe, maybe not, but plastics. So, drug delivery process, new treatment or diagnostic, now technology applications, and the like. So, how do we get started with SBIR and STTR? We do a keyword search on open and closed solicitations. There I have hyperlinks. They're under the Innovation Partnership, under IPart programs at the very top. If you hover over that and go down to federal funding resources and links, there will be a slew of hyperlinked resources on that particular page. A number of those links will take you out to the SBIR topics, current research topics, and there are different ways to search for it. SBIR.gov is one of the best ways because you can filter for a number of different things. I will warn you in advance that the keyword search does not have a Google algorithm behind it. So the reason we have you do these searches and not me do these searches or someone else do these searches for you is because only you will be able to declinate how high up the food chain you go in your generality of term usage. I wouldn't know that. I'm not a subject matter expert in your field. You will be able to refine your keyword search by trial and error on those sites, but it's going to take a little bit of time for you to finesse, what you're looking for. Why do we recommend that you do open and closed searches? Open search is clear and obvious because it would be something that's available that you could apply to if you're aligned well with the topic area. A lot of instances, a closed search is hugely beneficial because the timing may not be on point. You may be too early or too late or something to really put together a competitive proposal. So you would look to a closed solicitation topic in order to see who the topic author or program manager is that's listed for that topic area under what agency, and then try to reach out to that individual with what we can assist you with is a one-page company snapshot in advance so that you can strike up a conversation with them to see if the agency itself will be considering issuing any topics in the near future that may align well with your innovation space that you're working in. And that's always good because if they weren't thinking about it, and let's say 10 other, 20 other companies in the country, it becomes a hot topic area and there's a real need for the innovation space that you're in. And all 10 or 20 of those companies contact the same program manager. While that topic may not have been on the list to be issued as a priority topic by the agency, they may reconsider that and add it to the upcoming solicitation. So that's why it's important. Um, Another thing, so we ask you to contact a federal program manager. We can help counsel you on that and with the NSF project pitch, which we had the one-page company snapshot for 10 of the 11 agencies. NSF has now come up with something similar in advance. It's formalized as opposed to being a suggestion. You must submit an NSF project pitch in order to receive consideration for an invitation to submit a full proposal. We have a template document that we can help coach you and give you feedback on prior to submitting that pitch. So you're putting your best foot forward and you receive that invitation to submit. We also suggest that you contact and work closely with IPart or any of our partner organizations, of which the Science Center has been a hugely supporting partner of the Innovation Partnership for well over a decade and for close to a majority of its full operation. This is out of sync there. Sorry about that. Reasons to consider or not consider SBIR. So government timeframe may not be on point with your timeframe or the speed at which you wish to move your innovation forward to commercialization. This is not fast money. We can assure you of that. It's rather slow money. So strategically, as a company, you need to think about incorporating, if you're interested in SBIR and STTR, incorporating it into your business plan at some reasonable point in time, as opposed to doing it on the fly. I think it's a strategic approach to try to access these funds and use them to the benefit of the company. The government agenda, the topics may be off point. They may not have a priority topic area that your company is involved with, and you may need to wait, you may need to wait a year or more to either finesse a relationship with that agency or the program manager or the topic author or the TPOC, as they're called at the DoD, to generate a topic and or interest that is aligned well with your company and your planned innovation or project. Could be a distraction from your business or your research that you're working on. As I said, preparing and submitting a phase one can take anywhere from 80 to 150 plus hours of commitment of your staff, or if you're one person or if you're two people, if you don't allot the time to prepare appropriately and then you receive the award, you just need to make sure that it's something that you were planning to develop, it was in your pipeline, and it's aligned well with your business. Otherwise, it can be a distraction. There are reporting requirements. Clearly, it's federal money, it's your tax money, it's my tax money. So they want to make sure it's being spent in alignment with the anticipated budget that you submitted, that all of the amended budgets are done when they need to be. If you have a shift in focus in your allocation of funds and you need to direct them differently than your original grant agreement indicated, you have quarterly reporting, and you have the submission of your invoices for payment and those sorts of things. So that's all important as well. Here we talk a little bit about timing. It can take 4 to 6 weeks to complete the necessary registrations. The solicitation schedules, as I mentioned, every agency is different. They all have different solicitations at different times throughout the year. So it's important to know under what agency your potential innovation and or what you're planning to commercialize and develop is aligned with that agency. If you go to the innovationpartnership.net and there's a header that says solicitations, we have a table with a grid that has the solicitation scheduled on it. So here's an example of the award timelines for participating SBIR agencies and how many months it can take until you receive your award. I know it's a little bit of an eye chart, and you will be getting this presentation sent to you, so you'll be able to take some time and digest it. Agency registrations, open solicitations, we covered some of that. This is the registration grid that we've developed for you. It is on the website. You can download it. There are hyperlinks for all the registration types that go directly to the registration site, as well as in the columns there, the links to the microsites for the SBIR programs for each of those agencies. You should know, it's important to know that when you do these registrations and you go to the websites, none of these registrations should be costing you money, or the renewal of these registrations. Once you get a DUNS number, you're going to be inundated with a lot of spam emails. This SAM registration, I believe, occurs on an annual basis and is renewed on an annual basis. So a lot of clients get emails that say, click here and for $80 or $150, we'll renew your SAM registration. That's a scam. None of the federal registrations charge a fee. You need to know that in advance. Some things to note. It's not a difficult process to put together an SBIR, but it really does take time and commitment. You need to, again, I brought up the number of hours. Obviously, there's a learning curve with the phase one and a lot of reading and digesting that you need to do. Once you have that phase one under your belt, it's going to probably take you less time to prepare and submit your phase two. It's just the way it is. You have that experience then under your belt. You've hit that learning curve. And the phase two is somewhat different because you're talking about the results from your phase one, which is easy enough to do. And then you're also having a large discussion. A portion of that phase two is going to be about talking how you plan to commercialize whatever it is that you're doing. So, there's a difference in the time allotment there. So some advice, don't judge an agency, its interest by its name. DoD might have life sciences related topics, not just NIH or NSF. DoD has a really large cancer exploration segment under its umbrella. So we should talk, before you just assume that you're going to apply to NIH. There may be another agency that may entertain or be interested in whatever your life sciences related innovation is. Understand the agency's missions and needs, and topic areas are usually listed for each of the institutes or centers, of which I believe there are 25 plus institutes and centers under NIH. All of them have their mission and focus listed on their individual pages. You really should have some general idea about that prior to even crafting and submitting your SBIR proposal, so that somewhere in your proposal itself, you speak the language of the agency and reiterate it so they understand what they're interested in. Get to know the agency program manager. We talked about that a little bit, and the Innovation Partnership's ability to assist you with that. And this can't be noted enough. Read, 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 and follow all the instructions. I'd say a majority of the individual companies that we assist, a lot of the ones that don't get funded are for lack of following instructions and fully reading and understanding what the agency is looking for. Can't depend solely on SBIR and STTR funding. There should be other opportunities or means of financing that you're looking at. Shouldn't be the only thing sustaining your company. Don't go it alone. We should be able to have you engaged with the Science Center and the different programs, as well as potentially Ben Franklin or accelerators, or your local industrial development authorities or small business development centers. All of our partner organizations all offer different business assistance, value add services, and or potential investment funds for companies depending upon the stage of development their innovation and company is at, where they're physically located within the state, as well as their particular sector that they're focused on in innovation. So you're not going to be hopefully just working with Innovation Partnership. You should be working also in collaboration or getting advice and assistance from any of our partner organizations to help ensure that you're growing your business in a stable and reasonable manner. Have anticipated outcomes and make sure you get a review and a debrief if you do not get funded, and be persistent. So we also suggest you have someone unrelated to your work critique your proposal and read your proposal to see if they understand it. Even good applications can not get funded. It may depend on where the agency is at with the amount of funds they've already expended and they've already allocated and awarded under SBIR and STTR. If they're smaller agencies, they may run out of funding sooner. So here I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Innovation Partnership. I encourage you very much to go to the website and explore and read about the resources that are listed there. We are a free statewide SBIRS TTR assistance program. Again, we're a consortium of economic development organizations and business assistance organizations and institutions of higher education located throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. We assist early stage technology companies, again, in Pennsylvania. We're not going to help a company in North Carolina. We're not going to help a company where a majority of the team members are virtual and only one team member is in Pennsylvania. You need to be physically located in Pennsylvania where you're registered your business at. Most of our businesses are registered or incorporated in Delaware for the tax benefits of that. So but you still would need to be a registered company to operate in Pennsylvania. We provide free high-level pre-proposal SBIRS TTR technical reviews to clients. It's an instrument we created that's agency agnostic and relatively evergreen that we have you complete in advance of submitting your pre-proposal. It should help you get your head around the structure of the important component pieces that need to be included in any successful SBIR and STTR submission. We have a small amount of funding that is available. It's a phase 0 funding. It can either be a micro grant, a micro voucher. Micro grants are $2,000 to help defray the administrative time and effort of the individual people working on the grant proposal within the company. The check goes directly to the company itself, or a micro voucher. The micro voucher is for up to $3,000 to work with the preferred grant writing professional, of which we have a pre-screened and curated list of grant writing assistance professionals specializing in SBIR and STTR assistance throughout the United States. We have all their NDAs on file and they're aware of how our program works. The reason it's a voucher is because the check for up to $3,000 is cut directly to the preferred grant writing professional after you submit your actual federal proposal. We have a fulfillment packet. If we award you the micro voucher, you complete the fulfillment packet and attach the invoice of the preferred provider, and then we pay them directly. Now, those preferred providers need to be vetted by you. We don't recommend one over another. We just provide the vetted resource listing for you. So that's another little bit of homework if you're working with us. That you will need to pursue. Here's a little bit about our statistics. I think there's probably some updated awards that I haven't put on this. As of recently, we had 3 or 4 companies that have received, one received a phase 2 award and 3 companies received a phase 1 award. So I think there's some additions there, but you can see who we help. We tend to help companies, again, who have never submitted an SBIR or STTR before, or who have previously submitted an SBIR and STTR and have been unsuccessful. That tends to be who we work with. And here is our website. Again, under IPart programs, you'll see a pull down. Federal funding resources and links is important there. Awardees list Pennsylvania awardees for SBIR and STTR, as well as Innovation Partnership awardees. Solicitations is the table I noted that has a solicitation release date, hyperlinks out to the solicitation itself, deadlines for submission, IPart deadlines for submission, and the like. You can tool around there and, as I said, read about all the different information that we have available for you. So hopefully I'm within the time limit there. I know I went pretty quickly through a lot of the information, and again, you will be receiving the PowerPoint so you can go through it yourself. But if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them now.
Great. Thank you so much, Kelly. It was perfect timing, actually. Yeah, so if anyone has questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can also continue to make use of the chat box if you like. All right. Well, it seems that no one has any questions in the moment, but as Kelly mentioned, you'll all be receiving the slides for this presentation shortly. So thank you for that, Kelly. Thank you again for coming on. And if anyone does have questions for you that they think of later, is there any way they can contact you?
Sure, let me type my email in there.
Excellent.
Let me make sure it's correct. And I will give you my cell phone number as well.
Awesome. Thank you. You're getting some thank yous in the chat and some thumbs up as well all around. So
Okay,
well
great.
received, well received.
All right. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Again, I know I moved. Oh, there's Sharon. Hi, Sharon. I know I moved pretty quickly through everything. And clearly, if you give me a call and you're interested, typically my intro vetting, screening, discussion call can be an hour to an hour and a half. So we can arrange that at any point. Don't be shy. You won't be interrupting me. This is all I do all day, every day. This is my full time job. So you're not distracting me from doing any other kind of work. I'm here as a resource for you to ask the questions. There are no silly questions. The information here is convoluted and not easy to find. Um, and if you're doing searching on things, I may be able to get at an answer to a question quicker than you can, just because of my familiarity with where to look and the keywords to use, depending upon the agency and what you're interested in knowing.
Great, thank you so much. And I know you just said hi to her, but Sharon Ross says a big thank you to as well. So great to see it. All right, thank you everyone for coming out.